It's become an annual tradition each spring to ponder all the ways Augusta National has changed since it opened in 1933. Every April, we gaze at photos from the earliest days in all its bare, rugged scruffiness, and when you compare those to the Garden of Eden we see on television today, it's hard to believe it's the same course. But for all the ways Augusta National has evolved, matured, and been modified, the shapes and concepts of the holes that Alister, MacKenzie, and Bobby Jones designed are still fundamentally recognizable. The essence of what those holes were from the beginning are still there, except for one. There's one hole at Augusta National that's nothing at all like its original design. Hello, I'm Duncan, architecture editor at Golf Digest, and in this video, we're going to take a look at a hole that wasn't just slowly altered over time, but completely born anew more than a decade into the course's life. This is, of course, the lovely and famous par 3 16th at Augusta National Golf Club. The 16th hole that we watched during the Masters, called Redbud, is one of the course's most recognizable. It plays in a glade of pines across a beautiful reflection pond. We know it instantly. It's been the stage for some of the tournament's greatest moments, and it's the last in a stretch of 4 consecutive holes that give challengers for the green jacket their best chance to pick up birdies and eagles coming down the home stretch on Sunday. As significant as the 16th is today, it wasn't part of the original MacKenzie and Jones design. First put into play in 1948 by the most important architect of the era, Robert Trent Jones. No relation to Bobby Jones. The original MacKenzie-Jones 16th was also a par 3. It was inspired by the 7th hole at what is now called Stoke Park, a Harry Colt design in Stoke Poges, England, and played in an east-west orientation, kind of a continuation of the direction of the par 5 15th. The model for the hole would have seemed obvious to MacKenzie. He was a Scot who had designed dozens of courses throughout the UK before relocating to the US in the late 1920s. He would have recognized the bench of land between the small creek and the hillside behind it as the perfect green site for a short hole. So he placed the green on the opposite side of the little creek in a spot where it fit so naturally. It was wide and shallow and sat at a significant angle to the tee. To hit it demanded accuracy and distance control, with close hole locations on the left a little more generous, but with longer carries the farther the hole moved to the right. There were also feeding slopes off the embankment on the left that would move balls toward the center of the green, but it was pretty short at just 145 yards during Masters play and less than 120 yards for members. The tee was located just to the right of the 15th green. In 1937, the club added a longer 170-yard tee to the left side of the 15th green, changing the angle of play for the tournament so golfers were hitting more into the deeper axis of the green. That placed the creek hazard more to the right than directionally in front. That tee was extended to 190 yards in the early 1940s and would have been located somewhere close to the current concession stand off the 14th tee. If you've been to the Masters, you know approximately where that is. Then during World War II, due to financial hardship and support for the war effort, the club and tournament actually ceased operations for 3 years. When everyone came back in 1946, they were able to look at the course and the 16th hole with fresh, forward-looking eyes. And those eyes told them that the 16th, as much as the members liked it, and as pretty as it was, had never quite been a satisfactory hole for tournament golf. It was too close in both length and concept to the par 3 12th. They were both, at least originally, short irons over water into shallow greens that angled away. But the 16th lacked the infuriating winds and intimidation of the 12th. And no one was going to dare change 12. Only 15 years old, it was already one of the sport's most popular holes. The old 16th had even surrendered the course's first holes and ones. Sandy Somerville aced it during the inaugural Masters in 1934 when it played as the 7th hole. Remember, the 9s were originally flipped in MacKenzie's first routing. A year later, Willie Goggin aced it as the 16th hole, as did Ray Billows once again in 1940. So, thinking the hole was both too much like the 12th and not quite challenging enough for Masters play, Jones and Chairman Clifford Roberts brought in Robert Trent Jones to help make it better, because Alister MacKenzie, at that point, wasn't around. He died back in 1934. And who else but Trent Jones would Augusta National turn to? He was by far the best-known golf architect in the country. Bobby Jones had actually hired him 2 years earlier in 1945 to build his new course in Atlanta, Peachtree, which would open in 1948. So after getting to know each other through Peachtree, Bobby Jones and Clifford Roberts invited Trent Jones to Augusta National in 1946 to modify some of the greens that had gotten too severe for their new post-war putting speeds. Trent Jones made some tweaks, and satisfied with that work, they all turned their attention to improving the 16th hole. The existing hole was basically locked in. The tees as they sat had already been stretched as far back as they could go, and Bobby Jones wanted the hole to be maintained as a longer shot to distinguish it from the 12th. There also wasn't much they could do with the green in that location. It had already been expanded and remodeled once in 1937. It was what it was. So Jones & Jones had the idea to rotate the entire hole in a new orientation that ran more north-south rather than east-west. They decided that a new green could be built to the right or to the east of the existing one, placing it on the near side of the creek. Next, Jones built a long formal tee to the left of the 15th green, not far from the existing tee, and kept the same distance at 190 yards. And most impactfully, the area between the tee and the green that would normally be fairway was dredged to create a large basin. The earth that the heavy machinery excavated was then used to construct a large novel green complex with a formidable steep front face. One day during construction, it began raining so hard the workers had to run for shelter. When they came back an hour later, the entire basin was filled with water, with the bulldozer still at the bottom. It was foreshadowing of what the hole would eventually look like when they finished damming the old stream to fill up the basin that then became a menacing pond spanning from tee to green and wrapping around the left side of the putting surface. If you're fortunate to watch Masters practice rounds, you can go to the 16th and see some fun shots. After players hit from the tee, it's tradition for each group to walk up to the edge of the pond, drop a ball, and try to skip shots across the water and onto the green. Before the 1940s, it was not common for architects to create artificial ponds and lakes on golf courses. And though he didn't invent the use of artificial lakes, Trent Jones's use of them here and at Peachtree was influential. Man-made water hazards soon became a part of his repertoire, as well as that of basically every architect that came later. Jones placed 2 bunkers to protect the bailout side of the hole, then designed a crescent-shaped green with an elevated back section that tilted sharply toward the water. And there it was, a remarkable modern creation, a hole unlike any other at Augusta National or almost anywhere else, with its stunning water fairway and distinctive sloping green. But even though the new hole packed a dramatic punch, Bobby Jones wasn't sure they'd nailed the details. His reservations turned out to be right, because just before the start of the 1948 Masters, the front left section of the green near the water began to settle unevenly, which obviously compromised the integrity of the hole. So more renovations came over the next summer. The green surface was rebuilt and refortified with an enhanced elevated back section. Jones put another small bunker in the crook of the green next to the water, and the cherry on top was an extension of the putting surface at the back left to add another new hole location. Newspaper reports at the time credit the idea of the new 16th hole to Bobby Jones and mention that Trent Jones helped in the execution, making him more of a contractor than anything else. But Cliff Roberts insisted the hole was entirely the idea of Bobby Jones and refused to give Trent Jones any credit, even for building it. Those two didn't always see eye to eye. It wasn't until the 1970s, shortly before his death, that Roberts finally acknowledged Trent Jones's role in creating the hole. I mean, when you look at it, it's pretty obvious that Augusta National's 16th is a Trent Jones specialty. That's not to say Bobby Jones didn't consult or have his say, but Trent Jones's fingerprints are all over it. You've got a long runway-style tee box, which was an RTJ signature in his early years. There's the constructed lake. It's got a huge modern green with high and low tiers and heroic and penal hole locations. Nobody else was doing it like this in 1948. The design, Trent Jones later wrote, was mine. While the principles of the new 16th were set, the hole continued to be tweaked over time. For example, sections of the creek on either side of the dams remained for a while before they were eventually piped underground. In 1950, Cliff Roberts began adding copper sulfate to the water to turn it blue. The area behind the green that started off as mounding and shaggy rough was reshaped and eventually converted to a low chipping area, one that would later play a role in one of the greatest shots in Masters history. The bunkers have all been deepened considerably, and consulting architect Tom Fazio has expanded and rebuilt the green several times to increase holing locations and to install subsurface air systems, but always maintaining the signature high-low bifurcation so critical to the way the hole plays. We'll dive into that in a minute. And what about the area where the old original green once was? That special secluded spot that Alister MacKenzie was so fond of? Well, that was converted into more or less bleacher seating, a large grass embankment where patrons park their chairs and watch the action on 16 and the 15th green. Another fun fact is that the 16th is one of only 2 holes at Augusta National, along with the 6th, that had actually gotten shorter over the years. When it was built, the new Masters tees were 190 yards. The club always lists its holes in 5-yard increments. But prior to the 1982 Masters, the tees were moved forward up to 170 yards, where they remain today. This might have been in reaction to the new bentgrass putting surfaces converted in 1981 that would eventually take the greens to new heights of speed and firmness. It might have been to stagger out the par 3 distances and put different clubs in players' hands. Either way, putting a slightly shorter club in players' hands on 16 was a smart move. The green rewards shots that are executed with extreme precision and can punish tee shots that miss their mark by just a couple of feet. Part of the drama during the Masters is seeing who has enough control of their swing and their nerves to land the ball exactly where it needs to be, especially late in the round. Today's 16th is uniquely designed to expose shaky shots. So let's take a closer look at what makes it almost scientific in the way it controls scoring. As I pointed out, the green has this kind of bean shape that's tilted at a right to left angle from the tees. It's 45 yards front to back, which is 10 to 15 yards deeper than the average green, so it can play considerably shorter or longer on different days. No other par 3 at Augusta National has that much clubbing variation. The brilliance of the design is that it's really several greens in one, each equipped with a unique demand and a unique opportunity. The defining feature of the putting surface is this huge ridge that separates the higher back level from the lower front left. The slope cuts diagonally across this line. You can see the slope contour here. None of this area is pinnable. This high-low, front-back division creates 4 distinct hole locations, and during the Masters, they use one of them each day. These are the hole locations: 1, 2, 3, and 4. To put it simply, when the flags are on the upper plateau, 16 can be a difficult hole because the area to land the ball and keep it on the same level of the flag is very small. 1 and 2 on the upper level, as we said, are more challenging. The difficulty of playing to those locations is that the tee shot must carry all the way onto the elevated tier, but it has to bite before releasing off the green or into the back right bunkers. Any shot that comes up short or too close to the slope will roll back down to the lower level, leaving a 30 or 40-foot putt back uphill that players are simply trying to lag close. Recoveries from either of the bunkers are also delicate, because if they're not gauged correctly, they risk releasing and running down to the lower level. Now you've got a 35-foot putt back uphill for par. And those bunker shots are much more challenging now than they were in the 1960s and 70s, when the bunkers were considerably shallower. Since 2018, the scoring average for hole location 1 is 3.04 and 3.07 for hole location 2. As expected, the lower hole locations are marginally easier, 2.96 for the back left location and 2.97 for the front left. Of course, when we think of the 16th hole, we think of the traditional Sunday hole location in the back left corner. The entire complexion of the hole changes psychologically when it's there because of the way the slopes funnel the ball down toward the hole. The players know that a 2 is likely if they just come close to hitting their number. If they get the yardage right and get the ball to land on the slope just past hole high, the green will do the rest and they'll have a short birdie putt, if not a tap in. It might even go in. Over the years, we've seen how the slope moves the ball to that back left hole location. If the grounds crew cuts the hole in just the right place, it's like a magnet, and it even breaks back toward the tee just slightly. Tiger Woods also used the slope brilliantly in 2019 during the second most improbable Masters. With a 1-stroke lead and holes running out, he carried the ball past the hole and let it release, watching, hands on knees, as it just missed the cup on the high side. His birdie there at 16 gave him the 2-shot cushion he needed to claim his 5th green jacket. And tee shots don't even need to hit the green at 16 for the ridge to create heroics. When we think of Tiger Woods at 16, it's a different shot that comes to mind. Remember that chipping area behind the green we mentioned before? That's where Woods found his tee shot in 2005 after airmailing the green with just an 8-iron. He was 1 shot up on Chris DeMarco, but in a terrible place behind the green with his ball nestled up against the first cut of rough. DeMarco was safely on, about 20 feet below the hole, and looked good to level the score, given Woods' predicament. Announcer Lanny Wadkins described his pitch shot as one of the toughest on the course. He even said, there's a good chance he doesn't get this inside DeMarco's ball. Then, long putts are great, but there's nothing as exciting as watching his balls slowly gather momentum and work their way down the slope toward the hole, and possibly, we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching. If there are other holes you'd like to see us break down, please let us know in the comments below.